Chapter 879, She's My Friend. Chapter 879, She's My Friend. On Star Island, the trapped people were still attempting to seek the almost impossible dream as usual, while Jian Wushuang was fully concentrating on his cultivation. In a blink of an eye, it's been 2 years since he came to Star Island. In the palace of Yin Thunder, Jian Wushuang was sitting quietly in the midst of the endless, dark thunder sea, absorbing the power of thunderbolt around. He immediately looked up with a jerk as an unprecedented sharp light radiated from his eyes. The sharp light was brightly like a thunderbolt. I made it. Divine Yin Thunder. His face lit up with ecstasy. The power of thunderbolt in his body was defensively fragile at the very beginning, but it gradually grew into a pitch-black and terribly powerful divine thunder. The divine thunder was exactly divine Yin Thunder. The level of divine Yin Thunder was extremely high, and it was hard to cultivate it. During the 2 years Jian Wushuang staying for earnest cultivation in the Thunder Sea, Jian Wushuang suffered all kinds of hardships of Wanlei and finally produced a divine Yin Thunder. This was the first divine Yin Thunder he produced. Since it had just been produced and had some attacking potentials, it had a lot of room for improvement. There were 3 levels of divine Yin Thunder, and now he had just achieved level 1. But for all this divine thunder was far enough to help him achieve a brand new level. After 2 years of earnest cultivation on Star Island, my strength has greatly improved. My sword heart has achieved at level 5, and then the first divine Yin Thunder was produced. I don't know whether I can pass through level 2 of the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang clasped both of his hands, remaining a little bit expectation deep down inside of him. With such an expectation, he would obviously prove it by himself. Jian Wushuang left the palace of Yin Thunder at once, and headed to the Black Tower. When he just left the palace of Yin Thunder, he saw the whole Star Island was in chaos. A great number of people rose up, rushing towards the perimeter of Star Island. Meanwhile, Star Island rang with all kinds of sounds. Haha, how could new people come here? It's been just 2 years since Blood Mountain came to Star Island. Now another newcomer comes. That new newcomer, Blood Mountain, was strong indeed. As the 13th king on the island, he is not the one we can bother. But this new newcomer, I think, is not as strong as Blood Mountain. The whole Star Island was startled by the arrival of the new guy, just like Jian Wushuang's arrival at Star Island 2 years ago. Hearing these sounds, Jian Wushuang couldn't help raising his brows. Another newcomer? Is it Zhu Zui, Ling Long and other people? Jian Wushuang confused. Stellar Fog Sea was widely acknowledged as the Seond Impasse, and now almost no one dared enter into such a place. Over 1,000 years, it was not bad that 10 people came here. However, it's been less than 2 years since he came to Star Island, but another newcomer arrived. This new guy was likely to be Zhu Zui or Ling Long, who had come to Stellar Fog Sea together with him. At the thought of this, Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and headed to the perimeter of Star Island. At the perimeter of Star Island, a long, aquamarine-colored, particularly beautiful figure was surrounded in the center. Countless burning eyes darted towards this gorgeous figure, even more burning than those eyes on Jian Wushuang 2 years ago. At least, Jian Wushuang was a male while this newcomer was a female. More importantly, she was a gorgeous and shapely beauty. If such a beauty was in the eternal world, numerous people would be definitely tempted by her, let alone those prisoners who had been stuck on Star Island for a long time. Although there were some female cultivators stuck on Star Island, the number of them was limited and they were far less good-looking than this woman. Numerous eyes were sticking to this gorgeous figure as if they were starving wolves. This gorgeous woman noticed the stares of everyone around her as her face grew grim and her heart just sank with a bad feeling. Haha, it seems that destiny is kind enough to give us such a beauty. Supposedly, we'll see a good day in the following life. A wild and sturdy man said, making no secret of his greedy simile. This wild man was exactly Shimo, who had been defeated by Jian Wushuang 2 years ago. As he had been stuck on Star Island for millions of years, Shimo became very wicked. However, at this moment, "This woman is mine," a cold voice abruptly sounded. This voice was too determined to make Shimo and other people around frowned. Then they all looked toward the speaker. However, when they found the speaker, Shimo immediately smiled flatteringly. It's you, Mr. Tian Quan. Since Mr. Tian Quan was also interested in her, this beauty is undoubtedly yours, said Shimo respectfully, with a fawning smile. A huge prison as Star Island was, people couldn't be killed in such a prison. An expert coming first was always the elementary principle. Although you couldn't be killed here, your rival who was stronger than you could always torment you at any time because it was not subject to laws. This Tian Quan was one of the renowned kings of the 13 kings on Star Island, including Jian Wushuang. Ranking the 6th among the 13 kings, he was rigorous and competitive. Except other kings, who dared offense him on Star Island? If he wanted this woman, who dared say no? Well, the ice-cold man nodded slightly and said with a cold smile, "Take it easy. I'll take her for at most 1,000 years. After that, suit yourself." Many thanks, Mr. Tian Quan. Shimo and people around looked delirious. 1,000 of years. 1,000 of years was a blast, about which they really didn't care. You, come with me. Having a look at the absolute beauty, Tian Quan's eyes were filled with wild excitement. As the absolute beauty's face suddenly changed, she looked frightened, clenching her teeth. At this moment, whoosh, a figure suddenly appeared in the void behind. Jian Wushuang saw the gorgeous figure with an aquamarine-colored, long hair surrounded at the middle of people when he came here. Just as one expected. A smile grew on his face when he saw her. Surely, he also saw the surrounding, including those infatuating eyes of Tian Quan, Shimo, and others people. Jian Wushuang's look grew immediately cold as his body dived down. Bang! Like a falling stone, his body landed violently at the middle of people as a fearful atmosphere prevailed everywhere. Jian Wushuang's cold eyes darted toward Tian Quan at once. She is my friend. Who dares touch her? Chapter 880, Tian Quan. Chapter 880, Tian Quan. She is my friend. Who dares touch her? A ice-cold voice spread about as people around felt their hearts stop beating. Then numerous pairs of startled eyes immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. It's him. It's Blood Mountain. That newcomer. Newcomer? Now he's been the 13th king of Star Island. People began whispering. The absolute beauty also looked toward Jian Wushuang. When she saw clearly Jian Wushuang, her face was lit up with joy. You're Blood Mountain, aren't you? Ling Long, long time no see. Jian Wushuang smiled to the absolute beauty. The absolute beauty was exactly Ling Long. Previously, 4 of 3-clawed Blood Eagle Guard came to Stellar Fogsea together. They started with good control, but then they encountered a group of exotic beasts and had to flee in all directions. However, Shui Jin was killed while Zhu Zui and Ling Long was got separated from Jian Wushuang. Over the past few years, Jian Wushuang had no clue whether Zhu Zui and Ling Long were dead or not. But now, Ling Long had come to Star Island. She survived and had been wandering about in the Fog Sea. You are that Blood Mountain? A somewhat cold voice was uttered by Tian Quan as his eyes looked to Jian Wushuang. Yes, it's me. Jian Wushuang replied, nodding smilingly. Well, I heard that you'd passed through level 1 of Black Tower for the first 2 days you came to Star Island. Now you're the 13th king on Star Island, but your strength means nothing compared to me. I'm urging that you'd better wise up and give the woman to me. Tian Quan said chillingly. It's been more than millions of years since he came to Star Island. It took a long time for him to pass through level 1 of Black Tower. He was so powerful that he'd been ranking the 6th among the 13 kings. Jian Wushuang had just passed through level 1 of Black Tower. It was estimated that he just began cultivating the 9 secret skill. How could he put it in his eyes? What if I don't give her to you? Jian Wushuang looked coolly to Tian Quan, folding his arms. No. Tian Quan's eyes grew cold, giving a fearful laugh. Do you think you can protect her with your strength? When he finished talking, Tian Quan began attacking Tian Quan. An violent wind suddenly was blowing hard as Tian Quan vanished. Then he appeared again before Jian Wushuang, while there was a black long spear on his hand. This long spear had an increasing flow of air around, gloomy and ghastly. Newcomer, let me teach you how to respect the seniors. A cold voice was uttered by Tian Quan, while the black long spear stabbed directly on Jian Wushuang's head. It was so fast and his attacking skill was also malevolent. After seeing this, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes without panicking. As soon as Tian Quan attacked him, his bloodline power inside his body was sprouting up, transforming into gold-armored ancient god at once. Meanwhile, his Blood Mountain sword also appeared on his hand. As his sword principle greatly improved, the power of his Blood Mountain sword became stronger and stronger. With the black long spear directly stabbing towards him, Jian Wushuang waved his Blood Mountain sword at once. Clang! A sound gave a deafening aftermath, as metal struck metal. Phew! 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 3 black flowing lights abruptly swept around. Tian Quan waved his long spear for 3 times in a split second. The long spear was so fast that it gave out an violently destructive aura with irresistible force. Jian Wushuang's brows knitted as he immediately resisted the attempt of 3 long spears to attack him. When he resisted the attack, however, his body went backward for a few steps, thoroughly flurried. Chen Yu was right. There were at least 10 people who had the ability of breaking through Dao Master among the 12 kings, but they always attempted to suppress their realms. Like Tian Quan, he is one of them. Jian Wushuang and Tian Quan were putting a tough fight while he was well aware of Tian Quan's specific strength. At the same time, he also felt a uniquely destructive aura from Tian Quan's long spear. Tian Quan has developed a kind of Dao of his own, Jian Wushuang said secretly. There were a variety of Dao. The first kind was to perceive origin of heaven and earth, evolving from origin of heaven and earth into origin Dao. For example, Jian Wushuang meditated world origin and slaughter origin at the very beginning, and then they evolved into world Dao and slaughter Dao. The second kind was sword principle, saber principle, spear principle and other kinds of weapon Dao. This kind of Dao was a self-understanding of magic weapon. The improvement of sword heart and the elegance of swordsmanship also belonged to sword principle. The 2 kinds of Dao both belonged to eternal realm, which were not accessible to divine realm experts. However, there was the third type of Dao, which was quite unique. As for the third Dao, it was not necessary to tell different types. People had to explore and create it by their own. People could make their own Dao. The reason why Dao Master in the eternal world was called Dao Master was that they had developed and mastered their own Dao. The reason why Dao Master in the eternal world was called Dao Master was that they had developed and mastered their own Dao. If you wanted to achieve at Dao Master, you had to try to develop your own Dao. No matter what level you achieved at, you would acquire the ability of Dao Master if you created it. When Jian Wushuang battled with Tian Quan, he had perceived an independent Dao existing in the movement of the long spear Tian Quan performed. Apparently, Tian Quan had opened up his own Dao. He'd opened up his own Dao with so many skills himself. No wonder he could pass through level 1 of Black Tower. And he even cultivated one of the 9 strongest secret skills on Star Island, which helped him improve significantly his strength. With half closing his eyes, Jian Wushuang was lost in thought. Phew, phew, phew. The flowing lights shot out from Jian Wushuang's interspatial ring one after another. Under Jian Wushuang's control, the 36 blood sky swords converged in a second. Jian Wushuang had a deeper understanding of Ninth Heaven sword formation from 2 years ago. More importantly, his sword heart had achieved level 5. The power of his sword heart skyrocketed, driving Ninth Heaven sword formation to largely rise in both speed and power. Go! As Jian Wushuang pointed remotely, the scarlet longsword combined by the 36 blood sky swords was like a haze of sun, shooting up violently. It was so fast that experts around could hardly see clearly the shadow of the scarlet longsword. Then, the scarlet longsword had appeared right before Tian Quan. Too fast. Tian Quan appeared to be shocked by the speed of Ninth Heaven sword formation. But with his strength, it was not that fast before he could react. When Ninth Heaven sword formation swept fiercely toward his head, he directly stabbed it with the black long spear on his hand. 2 ghastly blasts of power collided in the void. Chapter 881 Scheduling Battles. Chapter 881 Scheduling Battles. Bang! There was a deafening clap. The scarlet longsword was busted up while Tian Quan's body was shaken so strongly that he took a few steps backward. But the scarlet longsword didn't calm down at all and continued shooting up as if it was completely controlled by Jian Wushuang's consciousness. Bang! 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 Under Jian Wushuang's manipulation, the scarlet longsword began madly attacking Tian Quan. Although Tian Quan could withstand the attacks, he felt under great pressure. Stop! Blood Mountain! Tian Quan suddenly shouted as his voice trailed off. Why? You want to give in? Jian Wushuang's eyes grew cold while the scarlet longsword combined by 36 blood sky swords was quietly hanging behind him, radiating an amazingly foul air. Give in. Haha, you don't deserve it. Tian Quan sneered at him and continued, today I've got other things to do, so I don't want to waste my time battling with you. Let's fix a date to have a final showdown, shall we? Fix a date to have a final showdown? Jian Wushuang raised his brows as he sneered in his heart. Star Island was like a huge prison, where people were so dull that they seldom had other things to do. How could it possible for Tian Quan to have other things to do on this dull island? He probably felt afraid of being defeated, so he planned to battle with Jian Wushuang next time. After all, he must have enough time to prepare this battle. For Jian Wushuang, it seemed that Tian Quan probably had some unique ways to improve his strength. Jian Wushuang had seen through Tian Quan, but he didn't lay bare the fact. You want to battle with me next time, don't you? Jian Wushuang looked at Tian Quan with a sneer. Yes, Tian Quan looked back to him while his voice was pretty cold. Of course, since it was battle, let's have it with a bet. I don't know whether you dare accept it. A bet? Jian Wushuang's smile grew wider. What would you like to bet with me? It's simple. The bet is the woman behind you and all the treasure on you. Tian Quan's eyes were shone with a strange light. Hey! Jian Wushuang frowned and he couldn't help casting an eye on Ling Long. He didn't any panic on Ling Long's splendid face. She looked rather calm. When Jian Wushuang looked to her, he nodded softly to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately knew her with assurance. Everything was determined by strength on Star Island. If Jian Wushuang couldn't defeat Tian Quan, Ling Long fall into Tian Quan's hands whether there was a battle. When? Jian Wushuang asked. In 3 days, Tian Quan replied. Okay, deal, Jian Wushuang nodded. If you lose, you likewise have to give me all your treasure. Also, you must leave Star Island and wander about in Fog Sea. And you're not allowed to go back for 100,000 years. What? People around were all startled. Even Tian Quan's face suddenly changed. Giving all his treasure was one thing, but leaving Star Island to wander in Fog Sea for 100,000 years was quite another. As was known to all, it was quite dangerous in Fog Sea that even Dao Master could hardly ignore those dangers. Jian Wushuang had just wandered in Fog Sea for several years. And he was so lucky at that time that he passed through all the dangers alone. But 100,000 years was so long that no one knew what would happen. Tian Quan was powerful indeed, but if he gave all his treasure, it would be a dead end for him to wander in Fog Sea for 100,000 years. On what basis should I wander out of Star Island? That's not fair. Tian Quan glared at Jian Wushuang. Because my treasure is worth more than 1 billion divine gems, Jian Wushuang's voice grew muffled. If your treasure is as valuable as mine, you don't have to leave here. 1 billion divine gems? People around became dizzy after hearing this. Tian Quan was also startled by this. 1 billion divine gems was armsot equivalent to all the assets of a Dao Master. How could it possible that Jian Wushuang's treasure was so valuable? Tian Quan had been stuck on Star Island for more than millions of years, and the only chance that he could get divine gem was to rob others, and he often failed. So he had little treasure. He may have less than 100 million divine gems altogether, far less than 1/10 of Jian Wushuang's. In terms of such a huge disparity, it was reasonable that Jian Wushuang put forward such a request in the case of fairness. Okay, I agree. Tian Quan nodded solemnly as his voice demonstrated some kind of craze. With a bet worth 1 billion divine gems, the risk was worth taking for him. Besides, he was confident to his own strength. More importantly, the battle was fixed in 3 days. 3 days. Hump, 3 days is too much. I can achieve at a higher level with my secret skill in 2 days. My strength will improve significantly at that time. Except the monster who has passed through level 2, who is my rival among the kings on Star Island. As for Blood Mountain, Hump, he has just come to Star Island for 2 years. How dare of him to battle with me? Tian Quan sneered while he stretched out his hand to make a bow with hands folded in front and said respectfully, Lord Spirit Sound, I have bet with Blood Mountain. Hope you can bear witness for us. After that, a seductive, red figure appeared. That was Lord Spirit Sound. Lord Spirit Sound mastered the whole Star Island and she knew everything happened on Star Island. No problem, Lord Spirit Sound nodded. In 3 days, you will duel based on the rules. After that, her figure disappeared again. An insidious smile grew on Tian Quan's face and he glanced at Jian Wushuang with a ferocious smile, turning away. It seemed that Tian Quan didn't know there was also an imperceptible smile on Jian Wushuang's face when Lord Spirit Sound agreed to witness their duel. After Tian Quan left, all people spread about. Jian Wushuang took Ling Long and headed inside of Star Island. Blood Mountain, thanks a lot just now. Ling Long said gratefully. You're welcome, Jian Wushuang smiled, shaking his head. By the way, you're safe for the time being. If I fail in 3 days, I can't protect you anymore. You won't. Ling Long looked deeply to Jian Wushuang. It was not too long that she got to know about Jian Wushuang, but she was clearer about how unbelievable he was. Jian Wushuang was the one who could go so far with Divine Realm. It was very incredible. Watching Ling Long's eyes, Jian Wushuang gave a shrug and said, How did you manage over the past few years in Fogsea? Have you met Zhu Zui? Chapter 882, A Trap? Chapter 882, A Trap? Jian Wushuang had a long talk with Ling Long. Ling Long had been struggling in Fogsea for all these years. Her strength was quite good in the Eternal Realm, but being alone in the Fogsea, the danger is everywhere. She was very vigilant but still almost killed many times. Luckily, Ling Long escaped death over and over again with her various skills. She came to Star Island at random. She had never seen Zhu Zui since the day they ran away separately. She had no trace of him. Our destiny is at the mercy of God. Only Zhu Zui himself can save his life. Nothing we can do. Jian Wushuang sighed lightly and added, You can live here for the moment. Although the island is a prison, no one will kill you anyhow. Cool. Ling Long nodded. From what Jian Wushuang had said, she learned a little about the island and thought it was a good place for her. Jian Wushuang helped Ling Long find a dwelling place and then went back to his house directly. Upon his arriving, Chen Yu came over. Blood Mountain, someone tells me there will be a fight between you and Tian Quan 3 days later, and the cost is enormous for the loser. Is this true? Chen Yu had been cultivating beside Star Jade Wall for a period of time and he wasn't there when Ling Long came. Yes. Anything wrong? Jian Wushuang looked at Chen Yu. For the last 2 years, Jian Wushuang had spent most of his time improving his skills. But in his spare time, he drank alcohol with Chen Yu now and then, and gradually they two were sort of buddies. Damn. You were in Tian Quan's trap. Chen Yu moaned. Trap? What trap? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, you've been here just 2 years, and don't know the situation. On Star Island, there are 12 kings renowned for prominent skills. Tian Quan ranks 6th regarding his strength among them. As far as I know, he had been immersing in practicing a secret skill all these years. Probably just around these days, he might make crucial progress. Once he succeeds, his strength will grow dramatically. Then, except for the king who had passed 2nd level Dark Tower, he will second to none. I guess the reason he wanted it in 3 days is that he will become very strong at that time and then he can defeat you easily. Chen Yu explained. I see. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, but not surprised at all. Oh, you are totally not worried about that, are you? Chen Yu gazed at his partner with an astonishing look. Nothing to worry about. Just take measures as the situation calls for. Jian Wushuang smiled confidently. Right then. Happy to hear you are fully prepared. Wish you good luck. Chen Yu left immediately. Jian Wushuang stood where he was with a hint of chill in his eyes. What a trap. He wants to beat me hollow 3 days later when he is strongest. Unfortunately, he won't succeed but be defeated instead. Jian Wushuang laughed callously. Is it a trap of Qian Yu for him? Actually, that was also what Jian Wushuang wanted. Even though his strength will rise dramatically after his breakthrough, such an improvement is far from enough to help him pass through the second level of the Dark Tower. But my situation is different. My sword heart has reached level 5. And with the first divine yin thunder, my strength has tremendously improved. Definitely, my skill is better than him. Maybe I can pass through level 2 of the Dark Tower. I was about to have a try today, but in case of any trick from Tian Quan, it's better to wait until 3 days later before the duel starts. As he made up his mind, Jian Wushuang immediately headed to the Palace of Yin Thunder again to improve divine yin thunder inside his body. 3 days elapsed quickly. In the center of Star Island, there was an extensive drill ground. It was so vast that even Dao masters could fight without any restraint. The drill ground was made to killing for experts on the island. At the moment, thousands of hundreds of people gathered around the drill ground. More than 9 out of 10 experts stuck on the island arrived. Even most of dignitary 12 kings showed up. It was the day Jian Wushuang and Tian Quan would have a duel. It was a battle between 2 great experts. Moreover, the loser would suffer. If he lost the fight, one promised to give the other treasures worthy of 1 trillion. And if the result was the other way around, the loser had to give up all his possession and left Star Island for 100,000 years, like gone forever. Such a big duel was particularly remarkable in this place. Early in the day, Tian Quan wore a purple gown, standing in the center of the drill ground grimly. He was waiting for Jian Wushuang. Everyone cannot help but look at him while remarks were inundated the whole ground. This guy has passed the first level of the Dark Tower a long time ago and then obtained the strongest secret skill on the island. The skill is hard to get, but he has been keeping learning. I bet he is in good command of it. His strength is absolutely improved. Oh, but I've heard he made no progress in a phase for a long time and devoted full energy into it. I wonder if he takes a big step. I guess he does. Rumors go that the reason why Tian Quan wanted to have the duel today is that his strength could grow much bigger after those days. Really? Then such an arrangement is totally a trap for Blood Mountain, isn't it? They just continued to exchange their opinions. Some uttered in a deep voice while others blurt out loud. Tian Quan heard them clearly. A cold smile showed on his face. Blood Mountain? Just a newbie here, reckless and stupid. Soon I will let him know who is the best on Star Island. Tian Quan said to himself piercingly. What he didn't know was that, when he was waiting there for a fight, his enemy appeared in the Dark Tower. Second level inside the Dark Tower. With the gold-armored ancient god appearance, Jian Wushuang stared at Blood Demon in high rank in front of him with a hint of dark golden light in his eyes. 2 years ago, he stood the same place, trying to defeat high-ranked Blood Demon with his 9th Heaven Sword formation. He failed downright as a result. Today, 2 years later, he came here for another try. Chapter 883, Level 2. Chapter 883, Level 2. High-rank Blood Demon, show me what you've got. Jian Wushuang licked his lips with a firm gaze. Even though he was being gazed at by Jian Wushuang, the high-rank Blood Demon did not hesitate. Striding forward a span of 300 meters, he suddenly appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and chopped down at him with his large sword. The attack was simple but domineering. Jian Wushuang was not in a hurry to display the 9th Heaven Sword formation from the beginning. Instead, he gripped the Blood Mountain sword tightly. There was a stream of power inside the long sword. Jian Wushuang quickly slashed out with the sword while releasing an overwhelming sword essence that was like a huge waterfall cascading downwards. Boundless Heaven Sword Art, 5th move. Even since he began cultivating on Star Island 2 years ago, his slaughter body had been working on comprehending the marvelous pattern on the Star Jade Wall. The swordsmanship contained in the pattern was completely unfathomable, but it left many impressions on him after his 2 years of meditation. Due to these impressions, Jian Wushuang had become more knowledgeable about sword principle. He also made great progress in the boundless heaven sword art. As of now, he could manage to display the fifth move of the boundless heaven sword art with effort. As for his incredible swordsmanship, Jian Wushuang could display it effortlessly, and his sword heart had also reached a new level. At the same time, a visible black thunderbolt surged out the instant the sword was swung, becoming part of the sword light. This black thunderbolt was the divine yin thunder that Jian Wushuang controlled. Bump! A roar of terror echoed inside level 2 of the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang's body shook and the ground under his feet split open. Although the process was a bit difficult, his eyes glittered with surprise. No wonder the divine yin thunder is one of the strongest secret skills on Star Island. I only managed to gather one, but my overall strength has improved so much. Although my strength is not quite equal to a high-rank blood demon, I'm still able to battle him head-on. With a faint smile, Jian Wushuang moved and immediately attacked. In level 2, Jian Wushuang confronted the high-rank blood demon with his swordsmanship, the help of the Blood Mountain Sword, and the divine yin thunder. A fierce fight broke out. Jian Wushuang was often suppressed by the high-rank blood demon, but his opponent could only dream about defeating him in a short time. Compared with 2 years ago, the situation was much better. Back then, he had been killed by the high-rank blood demon in only 3 blows. Bump! There was another loud explosion, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat and causing his palms to feel slightly numb. I can barely face him with only my swordsmanship. If I want to defeat him, I will have to rely on the 9th heaven sword formation. Jian Wushuang recited the spell in his heart and 36 blood sky swords immediately appeared, combining to form a 6-meter-long scarlet longsword. A horrible aura condensed around his sword. Kill! A threatening light flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes as the divine yin thunder directly poured into the scarlet longsword, becoming part of it and causing the sword's horrifying aura to skyrocket. Then, this terrifying sword sliced through the air, accompanied by a surge of flowing light. Buzz tilde the scarlet flowing light went through the air and instantly arrived in front of the high-rank blood demon. The high-rank blood demon whispered as it brought down its sword without mercy. A huge knife shadow ruthlessly descended. These two terrifying powers confronted each other once again. However, after this confrontation, it was the high-rank blood demon who was shaken and forced to step back. I have the upper hand. Jian Wushuang looked very pleased. For him, the most frightening feature of the high-rank blood demon was its outrageous power. But, now that he was able to use the 9th heaven sword formation with all of his strength, along with help from the divine yin thunder, his power exceeded the high-rank blood demons. As a result, the threat to him was reduced dramatically. Go. Kill. While looking coldly at his opponent, Jian Wushuang attacked continuously and crazily, displaying the 9th heaven sword formation with all his might. High-rank blood demon tried to fight back, but every one of the attacks was difficult to face. He managed to fight back against the first few blows, but he could not resist against dozens of these horrifying attacks. He eventually failed to defend, and Jian Wushuang took a chance to directly penetrate the body of the high-rank blood demon. Finally, he passed the test on level 2 of the Black Tower. I made it. When he saw the body of the high-rank blood demon land heavily on the ground, Jian Wushuang felt relieved. The condition for leaving Star Island was to pass the 3 levels of the Black Tower, and he had already passed level 2. He was only 1 step away from level 3. However, the level 2 test was much more difficult than the one of level 1, so the test on level 3 would probably be even more extraordinary. Let's give it a try. Jian Wushuang walked toward level 3 of the Black Tower. After Jian Wushuang passed level 2 of the Black Tower, on the large campus of Star Island, Tian Quan, as well as everyone who came to watch this battle, had been waiting here patiently. What happened? It has been so long. Where's Blood Mountain? We have been waiting for him patiently. Why hasn't he turned up yet? Maybe he knows he is not strong enough to be Tian Quan's opponent, so he ran away from the battle? Hey, this Blood Mountain has only been on Star Island for 2 years. How could he be as powerful as Tian Quan? In my opinion, he must have been too scared to come. He can't escape and no one on Star Island can die. On top of that, This duel was witnessed by Lord Spirit Sound in person, so even if he runs away, Lord Spirit Sound can declare it as his loss and give the 1 billion divine gems to Tian Quan. That means there's no use in trying to escape. Everyone was talking about it and some people had obviously become impatient. Tian Quan's face was also a bit cold. At this time, Buzz Tilda, an enchanting red figure, suddenly appeared in the center of the drill grounds. Everyone around showed their respect towards him. Tian Quan, Blood Mountain is currently being tested in the Black Tower and he still hasn't come out. Please wait a little longer, said Lord Spirit Sound. In the Black Tower? Tian Quan felt puzzled. Also, Lord Spirit Sound continued, just now, Blood Mountain passed level 2 of the Black Tower. His simple words instantly caused a loud uproar on the drill grounds. Chapter 884, Oh no. Chapter 884, Oh no. The once chaotic drill ground had turned dead silent all of a sudden. It was so quiet that you could hear a needle drop. Those standing on the drill ground widened their eyes, their mouths making an O shape. The words of Lord Spirit Sound were still ringing in their heads. Just a moment ago, Xiefeng had broken through level 2 of the Black Tower. He had only been on Star Island for less than 2 years and had already surpassed level 2. How is that possible? The crowd was stunned, barely anyone could accept this fact. However, the one who proclaimed it had been Lord Spirit Sound. Since it was said by a person like him, there was nothing to doubt about it. Xiefeng really did surpass it. Amazing. Really amazing. How long has it been? He actually surpassed it in just 2 short years. The second level of the Black Tower is more difficult than the first by 10 times at least. Except for those strong monsters, the kings on Star Island had been stuck at the first level for a very long time. Furthermore, they even cultivated a strong secret skill, but it did not manage to surpass level 2. However, this Xiefeng. He's a monster that cannot be comprehended. Numerous people were gasping in shock, each feeling very emotional about this news. After the momentary shocks, their gaze returned back to Tian Quan, who was standing in the middle of the drill ground. However, this time around, their eyes was very strange. In fact, some even showed a sense of schadenfreude. Just a moment before, they were gasping at Tian Quan's skills and were guessing how strong he could become after having a breakthrough in that secret skill. But now, everyone had the same thought. Things are not good for Tian Quan. Things are not good. Tian Quan was now in trouble, a tragedy. Even Tian Quan himself was well aware of his circumstances. How is this possible? Tian Quan froze completely. He had yet to walk out of that state of shock. Just before that, Tian Quan had not paid much attention to Jian Wushuang. 3 days ago, Jian Wushuang had used the 9th Heaven Sword formation to suppress him. However, he had not given much thought about it. Besides, once he achieved a breakthrough in the secret skill that he was refining, his strength would definitely reach a whole new level. He had the ultimate confidence that he could defeat Jian Wushuang easily. But now, Jian Wushuang had yet to appear at the scene. Just the Lord Spirit Sound's message alone was enough to bring him to despair. Level 2? He actually surpassed level 2? That's impossible. Tian Quan shook his head crazily. God, this was the second time. Only the strongest monster among the 12 kings of Star Island had surpassed it as well. Furthermore, that monster took a damn long time to achieve that. But this Xiefeng had only been in the Star Island for 2 years and he already achieved such tremendous improvements in his strength. That's it. Tian Quan was expressionless. He was very clear of his own circumstance. Although his strength was skyrocketing, there was still a huge gap between him and level 2. He was obviously not a worthy opponent of Jian Wushuang who had already surpassed it. People around him were giving him looks of pity. Just at that moment, whoosh, a shadow came flying past them. It was Jian Wushuang who had just walked out of the Black Tower. After passing level 2's challenge, which was to defeat the high-ranked blood demon, Jian Wushuang had attempted to break through level 3. His opponent was once again a blood demon, but its strength was extremely scary. Jian Wushuang gave his best but failed after being hit by 2 knives. After walking out of the Black Tower, Jian Wushuang immediately rushed towards the drill ground. Upon arrival, he saw many complicated looks. Some were in shock, some filled with admiration, and some were even filled with jealousy. Seems like Lord Spirit Sound has already released the news of me passing level 2? Jian Wushuang glanced at Lord Spirit Sound and thought to himself. Xiefeng, Tian Quan, since the both of you are here, then let's begin today's duel, said Lord Spirit Sound. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded his head slightly and immediately glanced at Tian Quan. His gaze became cold. Bastard. Tian Quan had a dark expression on his face and his body was shaking in anger. However, he was the one who invited Lord Spirit Sound to be the witness to this duel. The conditions could not be changed. PH, so what if he passed level 2? Perhaps he was just lucky. Yes, it was pure luck. His strength might not be that strong after all. Tian Quan comforted himself. I've achieved a breakthrough in that secret skill and my strength has increased greatly. I'm not that far away from level 2. This fight is unnecessary. It might even be possible that I beat him. Comforting himself like that, a streak of light flashed in his gaze. His expressions turned crazy and he started the fight straight away. Shoosh. Tian Quan launched a sudden attack and he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in an instant. At that moment when he moved, a burning flame appeared on his back. This flame burned the air and it instantly formed an image of an exotic beast on Tian Quan's back. The flaming exotic beast was struggling and it was emitting an extremely strong aura. Is this the secret skill that he has been cultivating? Jian Wushuang frowned at the image of that exotic beast. He had taken a look at the introductions of the 9 strongest secret skills of Star Island. Tian Quan had exhibited one of the secret skills that could raise one's offensive power, which was considered hard to acquire. He had already managed to control this skill quite well. The proof was the image on his back. Although Tian Quan's aura skyrocketed with the appearance of the image, Jian Wushuang was not taken aback at all. There's no need to waste time dealing with him. Jian Wushuang felt a tug in his head and he transformed into the gold-armored ancient god. Right afterward, sword shadows immediately shot out from his interspatial ring. These shadows instantly came together in the void, forming a 2 feet long scarlet longsword. This long sword was extremely sharp and had a terrifying aura. At the moment it was formed, a black thunderbolt shot out from Jiang Wushuang's body into the long sword. It caused the sword's aura to skyrocket. Go! Jian Wushuang hushed lowly and the blade immediately flashed across the void and appeared in front of Tian Quan. After breaking through the void easily, the longsword aimed for Tian Quan's head. It all happened too fast. The crowd did not have enough time to react. However, that was not the case for Tian Quan. The black long spear that he was holding was ready to be launched. It aimed straight to the front. This pierce created a huge hole in the void. Chapter 885, Alone on the Top. Chapter 885, Alone on the Top. Boom. Following the sound, Tian Quan felt a huge force reaching him through the long spear in his hand. His whole body shook and he felt something sweet in his mouth. He almost gushed out blood. You actually held that in? Not bad. Jian Wushuang laughed faintly. After which, he controlled the scarlet longsword to shoot out again at an alarming speed. Tian Quan had just barely blocked the first attack and was regaining his posture when the second attack already came his way. Why is this happening? Tian Quan's eyes were flickering madly. He immediately spun the long spear and the flaming exotic beast image behind him let out a huge growl. It became even more powerful. Boom. Tian Quan threw the black projectile in his hands. Jian Wushuang controlled his scarlet long sword and aimed at Tian Quan for the 3rd time. No. Tian Quan only managed to let out a pitiful cry before his head was pierced by the long sword. The winner had been decided. On the drill ground, Tian Quan's head came back together. However, he was as pale as snow. His body was shaking and his gaze was hollow. The experts in the crowd watching were murmuring to themselves in shock. The gap is too big. 3 moves, all it took was 3 attacks to kill Tian Quan. This is absolutely overwhelming. He has such strength, no wonder he can surpass level 2. The crowd had all these thoughts to themselves and were looking at Jian Wushuang in admiration. If they used to think that luck played a little role in helping Jian Wushuang to pass level 2, they were now proven wrong by his real strength. After all, Tian Quan was one of the 12 kings. Besides, after he achieved a breakthrough in the secret skill that he was cultivating, his rank was in the top 3. However, he had failed to take just 3 attacks from Jian Wushuang before he had been totally crushed. Perhaps, other than the 5 big Dao masters, only the strongest monster in the 12 kings of Star Island could display such strength. Tian Quan, you've lost, you must fulfill your promise. Jian Wushuang had already retrieved the Blood Sky sword. Standing in the drill ground, he looked at Tian Quan silently. Tian Quan's body was shaking. He was so unwilling to do so. However, since Lord Spirit Sound was present, he could only give away all his belongings and treasures. The treasures were all given to Jian Wushuang, including the spear he had used just now. It was an emperor weapon level. Tian Quan, listen carefully. According to the rules of the duel, you must leave Star Island today. You will then roam in the Fog Sea and never return in the next 10,000 years. Jian Wushuang proclaimed without any emotion on his tone. After hearing that, Tian Quan's face became even whiter than a piece of paper. He had lost all his treasures, but he could think of ideas to gain back some. But if he were to lose his life as well, then that would be the end. With no treasure in hand, asking him to go to the Fog Sea would be the same as asking him to die. In conclusion, Tian Quan was in deep trouble this time. He had failed terribly. However, not only did he suffer loss, he had not even accomplished his true goal. Even if he had failed terribly, he had only himself to blame. With the presence of Lord Spirit Sound's power, Tian Quan could only walk out of Star Island cooperatively. Jian Wushuang was standing on the drill ground, looking at Tian Quan's back as he left. But just at this moment, "Oh, seems like there's a commotion today," a thick voice was heard suddenly. Following which, the crowd saw a purple-haired elegant man walking slowly towards them. He had 2 long spears on his back. This man had an untouchable aura in his midbrow. Every step he took caused purple ripples in the void beneath his feet. Everyone on the drill ground squinted their eyes when they saw someone walking towards them. Zidong. It's Zidong. He is the official number 1 king among the 12 kings. It's monster Zidong. Is Zidong actually here? Isn't he always doing closed-door training? The whole drill ground became chaotic. Jian Wushuang lifted his head to see who was coming. So is he Zidong? Jian Wushuang's gaze was starting to freeze. He had been on the island for 2 years and knew a little bit about some of the experts here. For example, he knew the names of the 12 kings on Star Island. Of course, he also knew this king in front of him was ranked first and the so-called monster. He was also the only one on the island who had passed the test on level 2 of the Black Tower. Buzz. Zidong landed in the drill ground in front of Jian Wushuang. A pair of strange eyes glowing with purple light were staring straight into Jian Wushuang's. Are you Xiefeng? Zidong asked with a calm voice. Yes, I am. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. For all these years, I have been doing closed-door training. I never took notice of what's happening on Star Island. If Lord Spirit Sound had not notified me just now, saying that you've passed level 2, I'm afraid I wouldn't have even known that a character like you arrived on the island. Zidong said. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow and glanced at Lord Spirit Sound unconsciously. He got the news of Zidong doing closed-door training from Chen Yu. He knew that he rarely came out. But he actually appeared in front of him today. It turned out that Lord Spirit Sound told Zidong the news of him passing to level 2, which was made him go out in shock. Being stared by Jian Wushuang, Lord Spirit Sound kept his highly unfathomable smile. He was not intending to give any response. Xiefeng, there are quite a number of experts on Star Island. But before today, I was the only one who had managed to pass level 2. For so many years, I have been standing at the peak all by myself. It may sound glorious, but did you know the other feelings associated with it? Zidong stared at Jian Wushuang. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Indeed, he did. It was always lonely being above of everyone else. The other experts, like the other kings, could find their own opponents on Star Island. They could fight on a regular basis. But Zedong was an exception. In the Eternal Realm on Star Island, he was already undefeatable. No one dared to provoke nor attack him. And as for the 5 big Dao masters on the island, they were way stronger than him. He was not qualified to challenge them. This was why he never had a decent opponent for all these years. He did not even have a chance to fight. This was an unbearable torture for someone born for combat. I used to not have any opponents. But things are different now. Zedong smiled faintly and his gaze towards Zhen Wushuang became brighter. I am very excited. After all these years, there's finally someone else who surpassed level 2 and can enter the Eternal Realm. Xiefeng, come fight with me. Chapter 886, The Number 1 King, Zedong. Chapter 886, The Number 1 King, Zedong. Xiefeng, come fight me. Chaos broke out immediately with Zedong's challenge among the whole drill ground. Challenge? Is Zedong challenging Xiefeng? Haha, Zedong finally found an opponent. We haven't seen Zedong fight in so long. The last time he fought, he hadn't even passed level 2. Zedong and Xiefeng? Who will win this fight? One by one, the gazes of the crowd all brightened up. Zhen Wushuang also noticed the burning passion in Zedong's eyes. He laughed and nodded. I also want to know how strong the number 1 king of Star Island is. Zhen Wushuang had really high expectations. He would never turn down this fight. It was always lonely being on top of everyone else. Now, the 2 strongest people in the Eternal Realm of Star Island were him and Zedong. Naturally, they would have to treat each other as honorable opponents. Make a move, I hope that you won't disappoint me. Seeing Zhen Wushuang take up the fight, the corners of Zedong's mouth went up. I will try my best. Zhen Wushuang smiled faintly. Following which, he took out his 36 Bloodsky swords and they instantly formed a 2 feet long scarlet longsword. A black thunderbolt traveled from Zhen Wushuang's body into the sword formation once again. Oh, divine yin thunder! Zedong took notice of Zhen Wushuang's move. When he saw him using the divine yin thunder, his eyes lit up. He laughed, haha, what a coincidence. That's what I'm cultivating too. You too. Zhen Wushuang was flustered. Then let's see whose is stronger. After speaking, Zhen Wushuang controlled his scarlet longsword such that it shot out like an explosion. It was as fast as lightning. The crowd was unable to see it flash past the void. On the other hand, the longsword's target, Zedong, laughed coldly. When the sword was approaching him, he suddenly moved his body. Whoosh! A purple shadow flashed past the void. It was as quick as a ghost. Zhen Wushuang's long sword had fixed its target. It was already so close to touching Zedong, but he moved away so quickly. In that instant, he literally moved past the edges of the sword. What? Zhen Wushuang was greatly taken aback. The first launch of his 9th Heaven sword formation was the Traceless sword formation. Its strength was its fast speed, followed by its also remarkable power. With the support of the divine yin thunder, the sword formation's shooting rate became even faster. Usually, it was difficult for even the Eternal Realm to capture the shadow of the long sword. However, Zedong actually managed to just pass around it. Dodge the sword formation? What kind of a speed was that? Xiefeng, take this spear. After going around the sword formation, Zedong appeared in front of Zhen Wushuang. The 2 long spears on his back had already formed together. He looked at Zhen Wushuang with a grin and threw the spears in his hands. It all happened as fast as lightning. Zhen Wushuang had already turned into the gold-armored ancient god state. However, the armor was too big. He was unable to avoid Zedong's attack. He could only take out his Blood Mountain sword and perform swordsmanship as he launched it against his opponent. Clang! Once the tip of the long spear landed on the blood-colored Blood Mountain sword, it caused a strong spiral effect. The force seemed like it was going to grind Zhen Wushuang's hand. Luckily, the physical strength of Zhen Wushuang's gold-armored ancient god was incredibly strong. With the addition of his Shuiying armor, he was well protected. Zhen Wushuang snorted coldly. He dismissed the spiral force easily, although he was forced to take a few steps back while doing so. While he was backtracking, Jian Wushuang's gaze was full of glistening flashes of light. He controlled his ninth heaven sword formation and immediately launched an attack back to Zidong. Your sword formation may be quick and your power may be strong enough, but it's such a pity that you're obviously not too familiarized with using it yet. Your actions are clumsy and not flexible. Against me, a sword formation like this is basically useless. Zidong smiled lightly and just stood where he was, allowing the scarlet long sword to aim directly for him. Right before the long sword was about to hit him, Zidong suddenly moved his body and bypassed it once again. Jian Wushuang's face was sullen. The ninth heaven sword formation that he was controlling was super fast. It had met many opponents before and none of them had managed to surpass it. Zidong was the only one. Not flexible enough. Jian Wushuang furrowed his eyebrows and sighed to himself. After all, he had just gotten control of the ninth heaven sword formation recently, which was the reason he was at the initial realm of understanding towards the first attack of this skill. This led to the flaws in his activation of the skill. Jian Wushuang was on the drill ground, focusing on controlling the ninth heaven sword formation. He shot them at Zidong at a crazy speed, but the target just stood there and moved his body just when strictly required. He managed to avoid 10 consecutive attacks easily. Jian Wushuang's swings did not even touch the corners of Zidong's sleeves. I've already said, your sword formation has no effects on me at all. Once again, he avoided the sword formation's attack. Zidong shook his head and snorted, and then his body flashed past violently. He was too quick for the ninth heaven sword formation that Jian Wushuang was controlling. It proved that he was too inflexible. The ninth heaven sword formation was actually capable of being speedy and powerful, but Jian Wushuang only knew how to control it to launch an attack straight forward. The formation's speed would slow down if it was to turn or change direction in the void. Fail. Zidong laughed faintly and launched the long sword he was holding onto again. This attack was faster and scarier than the previous one. The dangerous attack made the part of the void in front of him blow up violently. Although Jian Wushuang's sword formation tried its best to protect him, his arm was still numb from the shock and fresh blood was dripping from the corners of his mouth. Afterward, Zidong's spear skills went completely insane. One by one, the spear shadows flew towards Jian Wushuang. They were strangely fast and traveled at unexpected angles, which suffocated Jian Wushuang. He set up an all-body protection and managed to withstand a few spear attacks. However, the projectiles soon pierced through the protection. Jian Wushuang had lost the fight. Jian Wushuang's body had recovered completely as he laid on the drill ground. The 2-feet-long scarlet longsword was floating silently beside him. Jian Wushuang glanced at the ninth heaven sword formation beside him and shook his head in shame. I relied on the ninth heaven sword formation the most. If Zidong had not dodged its attacks, I could have battled with him. But in the end, my sword formation was nothing to him. Without the sword formation, once he comes near me, I would be left with limited ways to attack back. I fail with dignity in this duel. Chapter 887 Zidong's Evaluation. Chapter 887 Zidong's Evaluation. Indeed, he had failed with dignity. True to his status as Star Island's widely recognized #1 king, Zidong's strength was much greater than Jian Wushuang's. He has already formed his own Dao long ago and not just one of them. He has already cultivated the Divine Yin Thunder secret skill till level 2. It is much stronger than mine. His knowledge of the spear is also extraordinarily strong. Jian Wushuang was praising Zidong in his heart. Xiefeng. At this moment, Zidong looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile on his face. Your current strength is still lacking a little bit, you can't even make me get serious. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help but laugh bitterly. He could also see that Zidong fought with him casually just now. It was obvious that he was just messing with him. Those surrounding them heard the conversation and were taken aback. The strength that Zidong exhibited just now totally crushed Jian Wushuang. And yet this was not all that he had. Of course, it is just your current strength that's weaker than mine, we can't be sure of what's to come in the future. Zedong smiled lightly. I can see your potential. There is still a humongous space for improvement. Firstly, let's talk about your heavy sword formation. You probably just mastered the technique recently. There is still room for improvement. Once you level up to a certain degree and become more flexible, you can then make me really give out my best. Other than that, you still have a definite room for improvement in sword principle. Also, for the divine yin thunder, you only managed to condense one thunderbolt just now. It was also very weak. If you manage to improve your sword principle and divine yin thunder greatly, you can then come and fight a real duel with me. You may even defeat me. And if you have enough time, I am even sure that you can surpass level 3 of the Black Tower. Zedong said these lines with a serious gaze. Those on the drill ground listening were all shocked. They did not expect Zedong to make such good remarks about Zhen Wushuang after defeating him completely. Zhen Wushuang could be able to defeat Zedong in not too long, and Zedong also said that if Zhen Wushuang was given enough time, he could surpass level 3. Is that possible? Zhen Wushuang was also lost. He shook his head and said, that will all be in the future, and no one knows for sure. At the very least, my current strength cannot be compared to yours. But I believe that it is just a matter of time before I can fight a real duel with you and even defeat you. Haha, I am actually very excited about that. Zedong laughed. Then from today onwards, if you need anyone to help you gauge your skills, feel free to come to find me anytime. Anyways, I've been on the island for so long that I am always bored. If I could have an opponent like you to accompany me, I could not ask for more. Thanks. Zhen Wushuang's eyes lit up. Zedong was definitely a true expert. At least Zhen Wushuang had never seen someone as strong as Zedong in this level of the Eternal Realm. In fact, Zhen Wushuang felt that even the peerless genius of the Xia clan, who was widely recognized to be the #1 in the Eternal Realm of Eternal World, was not compatible to Zedong, in terms of strength. It would also definitely be beneficial for Zhen Wushuang to have an expert to help him gauge his skills. I am looking forward to the day that you become stronger than me. Zedong smiled, and after speaking, he turned and left. Zhen Wushuang did not stay for long on the drill ground. He immediately returned to his house. He sensed some flaws in his 9th heaven sword formation while fighting with Zedong just now. Since it was an imperfection, he had to fix it for sure. The crowd on the drill ground started to disperse too. That was the end of the commotion for the day. However, Zhen Wushuang remained a hot topic among the crowds on Star Island for a while. It was incredible that he could surpass level 2 of the Black Tower after just 2 years there. Not only did Zedong personally acknowledge Zhen Wushuang's potential, he even thought that Zhen Wushuang could surpass level 3 if he was given sufficient time. A high evaluation like this naturally caused Star Island to become quiet. Even the 5 Dao Masters were also surprised. However, although they started to take notice of Zhen Wushuang, they never showed up. In the depths of Stellar Fog Sea, in the lake covered with grey smog, Lady Red was still sitting quietly on a huge lotus leaf in the middle of the lake. There was a playful smile on her face. This enchanting woman was naturally Lord Spirit Sound. Lord Spirit Sound had an original body. Once incarnated, the one on Star Island would just be her incarnation. Her original body was always on the lake. Xiefeng, Xiefeng. Lord Spirit Sound repeatedly mentioned Zhen Wushuang's name. This Xiefeng is not bad indeed. As an inverse cultivator, he has now acquired that marvelous sword formation. Most importantly, he has an extraordinarily high level of understanding. He is now capable of passing the test on level 2. If he's given enough time, he could even pass the one on level 3. That is very likely. Seems like it won't be long before the lineage of stars gains one more disciple. Lord Spirit Sound mumbled a few sentences to herself. Suddenly, her voice stopped. She looked towards her side. The Stellar Fog Sea had many misty fogs that could cover the crowd's line of vision. However, they did not have any effect on Lord Spirit Sound. Her gaze could pass through the endless fog, into the vast void. She looked towards a huge island that was at the extreme end of the Stellar Fog Sea. That island was extremely far away from Star Island. It could be said that it was on the opposite side. That island was also covered in fog, but it was even denser and much more mysterious. Gu King, a fella came to my star island. He has great potential and has chances of leaving the fog sea. Most importantly, that fella has a definite relationship with your master. Lord Spirit Sound opened her mouth and her voice traveled through the vast void to the mysterious island. Chem. An ancient and thick voice was heard from the deepest part of the island as a response to Lord Spirit Sound. Why, are you not interested at all? Lord Spirit Sound found it strange. Interested? The ancient voice paused before continuing. No need to bother about him for now. Bring him to me when he can really pass the tests on Star Island. After speaking, the voice disappeared completely. Sitting on the huge lotus leaf, Lord Spirit Sound smiled and closed her eyes. Chapter 888, The Cultivation Age on Star Island. Chapter 888, The Cultivation Age on Star Island. After the duel with Zedong, Zhen Wushuang returned to his residence. A piece of empty land. Go. Zhen Wushuang controlled the scarlet longsword formed by 36 Bloodsky swords. The longsword shot out forwards. It traveled at a breathtaking speed. Suddenly, Zhen Wushuang felt a tug in his heart. He controlled the longsword to change direction mid-air. The change in direction immediately caused the sword to pause temporarily. After which, there was an obvious slowdown in its speed. Its forward attack was acceptable, but once it changes direction, its speed slows down a lot. Awkward, it is indeed very awkward. Seems like I have to spend a long time to investigate this ninth heaven sword formation properly. Zhen Wushuang spoke to himself. In the following days, Zhen Wushuang naturally continued to cultivate on his own. He continued to split the workload among the two original bodies. The world body stayed in the Divine Yin Thunder Palace for a long period of time. It focused on improving the strength of the Divine Yin Thunder in its body. On the other hand, his slaughter body often went to Star Jade Wall to meditate. After a period of meditation, he would find Zedong to battle out. Zedong had been withering on the Star Island for too long before he finally found an opponent in Zhen Wushuang. He could not be more eager to battle with Zhen Wushuang every single day. Zhen Wushuang had a high level of awareness. In addition to that, he also had the perfect opportunity given by Star Island. Thus, he was naturally improving at a remarkable rate. With an expert like Zedong to help him practice, Zhen Wushuang improved continuously in his ninth heaven sword formation. He was becoming increasingly familiarized with it. The Star Island was cut off from the rest of the world, it was basically a giant prison. Gradually, time passed. The people on the island were like prisoners, they led boring lives. They spent most of their time doing emotionless cultivation, they had already forgotten about the passing of time. Time was just a number to them. No matter how much time had passed, there was not much significance. However, that was not the case for Zhen Wushuang. Before he came to Stellar Fog Sea, he asked Wang Yuan how long Lung Wushuang could last without the Dragon Phoenix fruit. Wang Yuan's answer back then was 300 years. That was to say, Zhen Wushuang must bring the Dragon Phoenix fruit back within the next 300 years. 300 years was not a very long time. For the people on Star Island, it was nothing. However, for Zhen Wushuang, they were crucial, each and every year. When he was on Star Island, he took advantage of every minute and every second to think of ways to increase his strength. Just like that, he had been on the island for 210 years. Zhen Wushuang had never stayed at a place for so long ever since he started cultivation. It was also his longest in-depth cultivation. An elegant man with long purple hair was seated at a table in an ordinary backyard on Star Island. He sat there while drinking from the bottle of wine that he was holding. Zedong. A gentle voice was heard and a cool, elegant woman walked in. This woman was also one of the kings on Star Island. She was on good terms with Zedong. It's so rare to see you drinking alone. Why, did Xiefeng stop looking for you to gauge his skills? The woman looked at Zedong. Ever since he defeated me 120 years ago, he rarely came to find me. The last time was 30 years ago. Zedong laughed. That Xiefeng is really a monster. The woman shook her head as she sighed. When you guys first fought against each other more than 200 years ago, you basically outclassed him completely. But who would have thought that he would defeat you less than 100 years later? It's less than a 100 years. 100 years was nothing to us. But in this period of time, his strength improved by many levels. It was amazing. Hearing that, Zedong could not help but shake his head and sigh. Xiefeng's potential was unexpected. When I first fought with him, I saw that his strength had much room for improvement and perhaps he could outperform me in the future. But I never thought that he would improve so quickly. By the way, I heard that Xiefeng came to challenge you a while back. What was the result? Zedong asked suddenly. What else? Of course, I was defeated by him. The woman laughed bitterly. I don't even know what he's thinking. 30 years ago, he started to challenge others like crazy. Not only did he challenge us kings, but he even challenged each and every single one of them in the eternal realm who had average strength. Furthermore, he acted strangely while he was fighting. He could easily have won us, but he purposely held back his strength every time. He would use his sword formation to battle with us for a long time before defeating us. Haha, he is using you guys to train his sword formation. Zedong laughed. 210 years ago, I told him that there were some flaws in his sword formation. Since then, he focused on improving it. When I was helping him to gauge his skills later on, I could feel an obvious improvement in his control of the sword formation. It was much more flexible than before. By now, he probably already has an ultimate control over it. I saw that too. When he was dealing with me, he deliberately suppressed the sword formation's strength and speed by a lot. However, its flexibility improved tremendously. The woman sighed. By the way, Zedong, if Xiefeng continues to improve at this speed, do you think he can really pass the test on level 3? Of course he can. Zedong nodded his head in certainty. If I thought that it was possibly more than 200 years ago, then now I'm absolutely certain of it. It won't be long before he leaves Star Island. Are you so sure about it? The woman was surprised. Just wait and see. Zedong smiled but did not explain much. While the woman was chit-chatting with Zedong in the backyard, at the Divine Yin Thunder Palace on Star Island something else was happening. Jian Wushuang was in the middle of the Black Thunderbolt Ocean. He had a stern and serious look on his face. We have reached the extreme. Jian Wushuang held on tightly to his fists. A streak of light shone violently in his gaze. More than 200 years ago, his world body had situated in the Divine Yin Thunder Palace, sucking in the black thunderbolts. As that progressed, the Divine Yin Thunder in his body naturally became stronger. Besides, he no longer only had one Dao of it, he had 10 of them. Each Dao of the Black Divine Yin Thunder had accumulated the maximum thunderbolts. This meant that the Divine Yin Thunder had reached the peak of level 1, one more step and he would reach level 2. Chapter 889, The Shock. Chapter 889, The Shock. Here we go. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. The 10 Divine Yin Thunders, which had grown to the fullest extent inside his body, gathered and immediately began to fuse. There were 3 levels for the secret skill of Divine Yin Thunder. The first level began with the formation of a Divine Yin Thunder. 10 Divine Yin Thunders was the peak of level 1. On level 2, the 10 thunders would be fused together and evolve into a more advanced and stronger Divine Yin Thunder. Right now, Jian Wushuang started the fusion. Each of the thunder was extremely wild and violent. When 10 of them were fusing together, the process was very fierce and a huge burden to both the body and mind. Even a Dao master couldn't withstand such pain. Jian Wushuang had an extraordinarily strong willpower. Besides, he was fully prepared for this. The severe pain caused by the fusion process did not affect him too much. Half a day later, the 10 divine thunders fused together and began to metamorphosize. The most difficult and dangerous process was over. Metamorphosis was just a matter of time. After a short while, there was only one Divine Yin Thunder left inside his body. This one was smaller than the previous ones, but with much stronger power. The newly evolved Divine Yin Thunder was Scarlet. Yes, a Scarlet Divine Thunder. Jian Wushuang flipped his hand and the scarlet thunder appeared on his palm. Seeing this, his eyebrow raised. He could feel a terrifying aura hidden inside the scarlet thunder. Such aura was enough to be a threat to even a Dao master. The level 2 of divine yin thunder. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists, looking pleasantly surprised. The power of divine yin thunder will improve dramatically with each advancement to a higher level. Now that it had reached level 2, the thunder's power was at least 10 times stronger than before, which also brought great improvement to his strength. This secret skill of divine yin thunder was so powerful. I was lucky enough to have the Thunder Sea of Thunder Palace to help assist cultivation. Otherwise, I would have to wait for God knows how long to reach level 2. He looked around Thunder Sea with a light smile. He noticed that when the divine yin thunder inside his body reached level 2, the surrounding Thunder Sea was no longer useful to him. If he wanted to continue to upgrade the divine yin thunder, he had to rely on himself. Zidong also practices the divine yin thunder. He reached level 2 a long time ago, but stopped there ever since. It must be because the Thunder Palace can no longer be of any help. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Although the Thunder Palace had lost its purpose, Jian Wushuang did not care. For more than 200 years, I had trained meticulously on the Star Island. My power improved at an amazing speed because of the island's resources and the fights with those experts here. Now, my sword heart has reached level 6, the peak of level 6. I'm more skilled with the 9th heaven sword formation now and its power is stronger. Speaking of level, I now have a perfect mastery of its first sword formation, Traceless Sword. After 200 years of practice, my Star River secret skill had reached level 15. The basic power was 3 times stronger than before. There is also the Divine Yin Thunder, which has now reached level 2. Jian Wushuang's eyes shone brightly. Compared with 200 years ago, I'm much more powerful in strength. I have reached the top in every field and it is difficult to make too much progress in a short period of time. That is to say, even if I were given a few hundred years or more, my strength would not advance rapidly. I have made every possible breakthrough and upgraded to the maximum. Next, I should try to pass the 3rd level of the Black Tower. The 3rd level was much more difficult than the 2nd level. 200 years ago, after passing level 2, Jian Wushuang tried to pass the 3rd level. However, the gap was greater than expected. Today, his strength had tremendously improved in every aspect. He was qualified enough to challenge the 3rd level now. On the Star Island, 4 tall black towers stood silently. On the roof of a pavilion near the Black Tower, 2 figures were sitting in front of a chessboard. They were playing chess. Both were holding black and white pieces respectively. Life on the Star Island was as dry as a chip. Playing chess was one of the few things that could kill time. Just then. The slender elder holding the white pieces suddenly moved his eyes and looked toward the Black Tower. Look. Isn't that Blood Mountain? Blood Mountain? The other man looked over. Yes, it's him, the monster. I heard that he's been practicing like crazy. Why did he come here today? The lean elder wore a strange expression and said, judging from his direction, he's heading toward the Black Tower, isn't he? Speaking of which, the slender elder suddenly thought of a possibility. Is he going to challenge the Black Tower? 200 years ago, he just passed level 2. Now, he is going to try level 3? The expressions of the 2 elders grew excited at once. The Black Tower seldom had visitors. Those who came to challenge the tower all had confidence in their strength and believed they could pass. Jian Wushuang came here, which meant that he had the confidence to pass level 3. It's just more than 200 years, and he is already confident enough to pass level 3? The slender elder was a little stunned, but reacted immediately. Quick! Inform the others. 200 years later, Blood Mountain came back to the Black Tower again. This is a big event. Spread the news and let everyone know. Good, quick. The 2 men moved immediately. The Star Island was a small place with just a few people. It was very easy for them to spread the news. All they needed to do was to shout from high up. In a moment, everyone on Star Island was aware of the event. The entire Star Island was shaken instantly. Chapter 890, Challenging Level 3. Chapter 890, Challenging Level 3. In front of the Black Tower, there were huge crowds. Almost everyone on Star Island was here. The 12 Heavenly Kings, except Tian Quan who had already left Star Island, were all here. The 5 Tao Masters, though didn't show their faces, were all hidden in the dark and watching quietly. Everyone was attracted by the news that Jian Wushuang was going to challenge the Black Tower. The crowd was noisy. The 3rd level. After the 3rd level, he could leave Stellar Fog Sea. I'm wondering if he can do it. It's hard to say. This Blood Mountain is a complete monster. He is even more ingenious than Zidong. No more than 2 years after coming to this island, he had passed level 2, and improved with shocking progress ever since. Now, it is really possible to cross level 3. Anyway, he is the most talented Eternal Realm I have ever seen. If he cannot pass the 3rd level, then there will be no chance for us at all. Everyone was discussing about it. Among the crowd, Zidong and the elegant young woman stood side by side. Zidong smiled and said, I just told you it won't take much time before Blood Mountain pass level 3. But I didn't expect him to do so immediately. Don't be too optimistic. He is just going to try, but might not pass. You know how hard it is to pass the 3rd level. You've put so much effort, but are still far away from passing it. Blood Mountain, although very talented, only practiced for a short time. He is not likely to pass. The woman said while shaking her head. Haha, let's have a bet then. I bet Blood Mountain will succeed. Zidong smiled. Over the past 200 years, he had been in contact with Jian Wushuang many times. He had some understanding of Jian Wushuang's character after so many practices with him. He knew clearly that Jian Wushuang wouldn't challenge level 3 without certain treasures. Now that he was here, the success rate would never be less than 50%. On the other side, Ling Long and Qian Yu also stood there. Blood Mountain, you must succeed. Qian Yu clasped his hands, his eyes shining brightly. He was the first person Jian Wushuang knew on Star Island and they were naturally good friends. Because of their relationship, no one dared to offend him in Star Island. He admired and appreciated Jian Wushuang. Of course, he hoped he can go through. Ling Long also stared at the Black Tower, but with a complicated expression. She came to Stellar Fog Sea with Jian Wushuang and witnessed his growth and progress with her own eyes. Although Jian Wushuang was stronger than her when they first came here, the difference between them was not big. But what about now? Within just 200 years, Jian Wushuang's strength had improved to an unimaginable level. Her strength also improved with the help of the Star Jade Wall, but as compared to Jian Wushuang, the gap was really too big. In the midst of all the discussion, a figure suddenly appeared on the steps of the Black Tower. Hey, it's such a lively scene. An enchanting woman in red smiled and overlooked the crowd. My lord. Lord Spirit Sound. The crowd before the Black Tower immediately saluted respectfully. Are you all here to watch Blood Mountain challenge the 3rd level? The Lord Spirit Sound asked smilingly. In that case, let me do you a favor and show you his actions in the 3rd level. Just then, she waved her hand. Some ripples appeared in the void beside her. Then, a huge mirror image showed up. This mirror image reflected the scene of the 3rd level inside the Black Tower. Inside the 3rd level, Jian Wushuang, wearing a blood-red robe and carrying a long sword, was confronting the Blood Demon, the fiercest demon in the 3rd level. The two were more than 300 meters away from each other. Apparently, the fight had not started. In front of the Black Tower, all eyes were fixed on the mirror image. Hidden in the dark, the 5 Tao Masters also looked up. Level 3 of the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang stood silently, totally unaware of the shock outside brought by his actions. All his attention was on the Blood Demon in front of him right now. The highest level of Blood Demon. Last time we met, he defeated me with only 2 moves. But this time, it will be different. He held his fists and made the first move, without any hesitation. Buzz. The immaterial sword essence burst out. Several blood sky swords appeared in front of him, and formed a 6-meter-long scarlet sword in no time. At the same time, his body began to swell. He then transformed into a gold-armored ancient god, with the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. At that moment, Jian Wushuang had adjusted to his peak state. Let the fight begin. Following the shout, a scarlet thunderbolt shot out from his body and fused into the scarlet long sword. Soon afterwards, the long sword shook a little and disappeared. The first sword formation of the ninth heaven sword formation, traceless sword. Why was it called the traceless sword? Because the sword formation would sweep out without leaving any trace in the void. Now, Jian Wushuang had a perfect mastery of the first sword formation, and left no trace when performing the skill. Too fast. Apart from several experts, most of the audience in front of the tower did not see where the scarlet sword go. They only heard a violent wind-breaking sound. Later on, the void in front of the blood demon was broken through, and streams of spatial turbulences rattled wildly. The terrible strong power shocked those hidden Dao masters. The blood demon, with a wide and thick saber, attacked as violently as before. Before most of the audience noticed Jian Wushuang's long sword, the blood demon's saber was already on its way. Clang! With a loud crash, the sparks caused by violent collision of metal scattered away. All the audience noticed a shudder from the blood demon's body after the collision. Soon, Jian Wushuang launched another violent attack with his scarlet long sword. The long sword pierced through the void with so much ease. Like fish in the water, the sword showed up again in front of the blood demon. Chapter 891, The Seventh Step. Chapter 891, The Seventh Step. Shoo! The scarlet long sword shuttled through the void with terrible strength, and stabbed at the blood demon again and again. As Jian Wushuang became more skilled in controlling the sword formation, he could use it to hack, chop and even swipe, not just simply stabbing. The long sword was fast and flexible, making it difficult for the blood demon to resist. So quick. Too quick. Not only fast, but also so flexible. The audience cannot stop marveling at the scenes. Blood Mountain's sword formation is indeed formidable. He was not that agile the last time we practiced. As he became more skilled with the sword formation, his sword control grew more and more flexible. The power of this sword formation has been upgraded to a whole new level. Zidong gasped in admiration. His sword formation is impressive. But this alone is not enough to pass the third level. The woman beside him said. As expected, the blood demon finally erupted completely. The blood demon suddenly waved his saber and rushed forward. Majestic power burst out from the saber and beat off the scarlet longsword over and over again. He quickly approached Jian Wushuang, and was right in front of him in no time. Swoosh! The blood demon hacked with the saber. So swift and violent, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky. At such a sight, all the audience sighed pitifully, thinking that Jian Wushuang was about to lose. After all, the sword formation was his most powerful weapon. With the protection from it, he could fight with the blood demon face to face, but once the blood demon approached him. 200 years ago, when Jian Wushuang was fighting Zidong, he lost tragically because his sword formation was invisible and didn't work for Zidong at all. He was then easily approached and defeated. Now he was approached by the blood demon. Once close, Jian Wushuang could not use the ninth heaven sword formation. His offensive power would be greatly reduced. However, these people did not know he was not what he used to be 200 years ago. Now his sword heart had reached the top of level 6, and his divine yin thunder had entered the second level. His body was extraordinarily strong enough to resist the blood demon even without the ninth heaven sword formation. When the blood demon appeared in front of him and held up the saber, Jian Wushuang immediately waved his Blood Mountain sword. Once the Blood Mountain sword's ultimate power was triggered, Jian Wushuang instantly performed the fourth move of the Boundless Heaven Sword art. Bang! With a loud noise, a terrible roar shook the entire Black Tower. After that, Jian Wushuang staggered and dropped back several steps, but his aura remained strong and intact. He survived. How could he survive? Did he survive the blood demon's attack without the sword formation? The audiences were all stunned. In terms of attack, he had such a violent, yet nimble sword formation. In defense, He could resist the blood demon from nearby. Then, this battle. Just as when everyone was still shocked by what they saw, Jian Wushuang suddenly snorted, and his body split into half in midair. Yes, it is split into two. Doppelganger. It is the doppelganger. Everyone was shouting under the black tower. Jian Wushuang, who was still in the third level, revealed his two original bodies at this moment, his eyes cold and solemn. The world body stepped back toward the edge, and the slaughter body, with the blood mountain sword and a monstrous aura, directly rushed out toward the blood demon. The world body controlled the ninth heaven sword formation and attacked the blood demon in a frenzy again and again. The slaughter body performed the swordsmanship and fought with the blood demon face to face. On the battlefield, streams of violent sword light roared out one after another, accompanied by the harsh noise from the 6-meter-long scarlet longsword, which was shuttling back and forth in the air. The two are perfectly matched. Facing such an attack of two different offensives, the blood demon appeared a little confounded and kept moving backward. At this sight, the audience all stood in amazement. Is the blood demon suppressed by him? This is the blood demon in the third level. The last anchor of the Black Tower. Yet he is suppressed. Too strong. The blood mountain is too strong. His original body controls the sword formation, while the doppelganger fights. Both are terrible. The blood demon cannot withstand the attack from the two. Is the blood demon going to lose? Countless screaming rang in succession. Among the crowd, Zidong also stared at the image with wide eyes, appearing astonished. This blood mountain. His strength is beyond the eternal realm. I'm sure he is able to fight with a real Dao master right now. Zidong said in his deep voice. He did not disguise his words, so the people around him heard and were all shocked. To fight with a Dao master? In the eternal world, it is a wild wish for people in the eternal realm to confront with a Dao master fair and square. Is this the legendary seventh step? The woman beside Zidong murmured. The seventh step. The crowd was silenced at the sound of these three words. Within the eternal world, there were only 6 steps in the eternal realm. The 6 steps of the eternal realm was divided according to the 6 levels of the sword heart. The top of level 6 represented the highest level in the eternal realm. However, there was a rumor in the eternal world, saying that a 7th step existed. It was said that a long time ago, before the Tang of the Eastern Land was created, there was an extraordinary eternal realm in the eternal world. This eternal realm was able to fight with Dao Master. The entire eternal world was shocked by his strength. Just because his power was too strong to go beyond the eternal realm, someone defined him as the 7th step of the eternal realm. Only that one person had achieved the supreme 7th step during the entire history of the eternal world. In addition, 4 million years ago, the Star King, who had passed the level 3 test of Star Island and left Stellar Fog Sea, also reached the 7th step. But this Star King kept a low profile and had little fame in the eternal world. Now, the strength Jian Wushuang had revealed exceeded the 6th step and reached the 7th. This step was enough to confront ordinary Dao masters. Moreover, no one knew that Jian Wushuang was only a divine realm expert, except the Lord Spirit Sound and Ling Long. Of course, although he was a divine realm expert, he was still an inverse cultivator. He couldn't be judged based on ordinary realms. Lord Spirit Sound once said that top experts on this land had a better understanding about inverse cultivators. They regarded inverse cultivators as cultivators of a higher level. Therefore, inverse cultivators on the divine realm expert level were actually no different from normal eternal realm cultivators. Chapter 892 Lineage of Stars. Chapter 892 Lineage of Stars. Is he about to succeed? The Lord Spirit Sound had been watching the images from the mirror image all the time. Right now, her face broke into a smile. It's right. He is an inverse cultivator on the divine realm expert level, and should be regarded as an eternal realm. Besides, he has good opportunities, a supreme bloodline from the ancient god, a set of remarkable sword formation and the secret skill of divine yin thunder from the Star Island. It is natural that he could pass. The Lord Spirit Sound was not very surprised by Jian Wushuang's performance in the 3rd level. But the others were totally dumbfounded. Inside the third level, Zhen Wushuang's two original bodies cooperated with each other. The world body controlled the sword formation, while the slaughter body fought in close combat. The two were a perfect combination. Shoo! The horrific sword formation broke through the air like a bloody electric drill. Before the blood demon could ward off the formation, the sword light from the slaughter body shot toward him from the other side. The blood demon had exhausted himself, but was still completely suppressed. Being suppressed by his opponent, the blood demon grew weaker and weaker. Finally, the long sword stabbed fiercely at the blood demon, whose body exploded right away. The blood demon collapsed. He passed. The blood demon is defeated. He really passed the third level. In front of the Black Tower, the crowd was shocked at the sight. Even the 5 Dao masters hiding in the dark were astonished by what they saw. After passing the third level, Zhen Wushuang could leave the damnable place of Stellar Fog Sea. It was the expectations of everyone on this island. In history, only the Star King left Stellar Fog Sea 4 million years ago. Today, Zhen Wushuang was the second person to do so. He passed. Seeing that the blood demon totally collapsed, Zhen Wushuang was finally relieved. He waved his hand, and the ninth heaven sword formation immediately broke up into many blood sky swords, which were then stored in the interspatial ring. His two original bodies reunited. Blood Mountain. Out of nowhere, the Lord Spirit Sound showed up in front of Zhen Wushuang. Lord Spirit Sound. Zhen Wushuang looked over. It took you only 210 years to pass level 3 of this Black Tower. Very impressive. She sighed softly and then made a gesture. Follow me. Zhen Wushuang felt an invisible force rushing toward him, and his body was no longer under control. At the same time, in front of him, a space wormhole suddenly appeared and directly drew him in. The moment he crossed into the wormhole, the space on the third level quieted down. The mirror image in front of the Black Tower disappeared. The crowd was still there. Everyone was praising and discussing, waiting for Zhen Wushuang to walk out from the Black Tower. On a lake covered by endless grey fog, huge lotus leaves floated on the surface of the water. Suddenly, Zhen Wushuang emerged out of thin air on top of one of the lotus leaves. He looked around. This is Star Lake, the place where I live. Lord Spirit Sound was standing before him. She continued, what I have left on the Star Island is only an incarnation. What you see now is my original body. I see. Zhen Wushuang nodded slowly. Blood Mountain, you are clear of the rules on Star Island. You should know that after passing the third level of the Black Tower, you are qualified to leave the Stellar Fog Sea. Lord Spirit Sound went on, but there was something else. Something else? Zhen Wushuang was confused. You can leave Stellar Fog Sea if you pass the third level. This is true. Apart from it, you're also qualified to be a disciple of the Star Bloodline, said Lord Spirit Sound. A disciple of the Star Bloodline? Zhen Wushuang was surprised. Star Bloodline? What was the Star Bloodline? He had never heard of it in the eternal world. But he could guess that the Star Bloodline must have something to do with the great expert who had created the vast Stellar Fog Sea. Blood Mountain, listen carefully. The Stellar Fog Sea was created with great means by the founder of the Star Bloodline. The purpose of its existence is to select qualified disciples for the Star Bloodline. Lord Spirit Sound narrated. There are 4 Black Towers on Star Island, representing 4 different levels of tests. Among these 4 levels, the levels of the Divine Realm, Eternal Realm and Dao Master are designed to help select ordinary disciples. You just passed the Eternal Realm test, and could be accepted as an ordinary disciple of the Star Bloodline. This is your disciple token. Lord Spirit Sound handed a token to Zhen Wushuang. He automatically took it over and put it on his hand. A closer look at the token with his consciousness, he discovered a vast sea of stars, boundless and bottomless, sending out a unique and frightening aura. That aura was strong enough to make Zhen Wushuang's heart tremble. He swallowed hard, and quickly calmed down. Then he asked, Lord Spirit Sound, you've talked so much about the Star Bloodline. But where is it exactly? Why haven't I heard about it in the eternal world? In his eyes, the founder of the Star Bloodline, who had created the stellar fog sea, must be a remarkable expert. Such a mighty person shouldn't be unknown to others. His star bloodline shouldn't be unheard of. The star bloodline is not in your realm. It's natural that you haven't heard about it, said Lord Spirit Sound. Not in this realm? Then where? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Lord Spirit Sound glanced at him and smiled. The eternal world is huge. It's not as simple as you think. Your knowledge about it is like a drop of water in the sea. When you become a Tao master and have a wider knowledge, you'll naturally know. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang frowned. What he knew about the eternal world was only a fraction of it. How big was the eternal world exactly? You don't have to know too much about the star bloodline. After all, you are so weak right now. You should improve your strength first. Lord Spirit Sound smiled. By the way, now that you've passed the test and become a disciple of the star bloodline, I'll choose 3 opportunities for you and then send you away. This is the rule set by the founder. 3 opportunities? Jian Wushuang's heart lightened. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,